you have to be there all the time for these people. You can't just be there one and done. And if you're there one time and they buy your product one time, if they don't see you again and again and again, you're not going to keep that customer.
You're listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast, a podcast for Shopify store owners that brings you concrete examples on how to build and grow your e-commerce business. My name is Scott Austin, and I have an e-commerce agency named Jade Puma. In this podcast, I'll share my e-commerce insights and best practices with you. Hey everyone, Scott Austin here, and for this week's podcast episode, I have a guest, and his name is Ryan McCarthy, and his company is RynoPower. Power. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Scott.
So, Ryan, tell me a little bit about RynoPower. What does the company sell?
RynoPower, we started in 2010, and it's based around my business partner, Ryan Hughes, who's known as the Ryno. We're both named Ryno. He was a famous motocross racer known all over the world, and motocross is one of the most physically demanding sports in the world. A lot of people don't understand that because they see it's a motorcycle, but manhandling a motorcycle in 100-degree temperatures all the way around a rough track that's constantly changing is very difficult. And they compare professional motocross to professional soccer as far as heart rates and cardio activity and the amount of training that's necessary to compete at that level. So RynoPower is a supplement line originally designed for triathletes that has been perfected for action sports like motocross, mountain bike, BMX, etc. And so what we've done is we saw a niche where these kids were starting to make millions and millions of dollars a year, at the professional level of skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, motocross, mountain biking, etc. And they were drinking Red Bulls, and these kids were starting to hire physical trainers, and they were starting to really, exercise and take care of themselves, but no, they weren't taking nutrition seriously. So we saw an opportunity to break into that market, and we private labeled a triathlete company, quickly started hiring formulators and making our own stuff. And that was 12 years ago. And now we're sold all over the world.
And back in 2010, which is now a long time ago, how did you first decide to go into the supplement market? Was it just you saw that need from the Red Bull?
We saw the need, and Ryan Hughes actually my business partner had the idea. I had been successful in my careers after college. I went to UC Riverside and graduated, and I had ridden dirt bikes my whole life and liked motocross, but I didn't intend to work in that industry. I had moved to San Diego to go to law school, and I met Ryan Hughes after I had taken a little hiatus from the corporate world. I'd saved a bunch of money, and I said, I'm going to go back to my roots, and I'm going to ride dirt bikes, and I'm just going to get fit. I'm going to eat right. I'm just going to get things straight. I was almost 30 years old at the time. So I met Ryan Hughes, and here was this guy who was a celebrity known all over the world, one of my heroes growing up as a kid. He's not much older than me, but he knew this was an opportunity. The owner of the triathlete supplement company knew that there was an opportunity in motocross. Ryan Hughes knew it. I knew it. And they weren't going to let Ryan Hughes do it on his own. He had to have a businessman. So I was that businessman, and I had begun being Ryan's business manager. He owned a motocross track, and they were selling organic nuts, and they were doing some different things. And I came in and immediately took over a lot of that stuff and helped get it under control. But what's really cool is Ryan had these supplements. He said, I think these things would sell. And I agreed, because here I was in my late 30s going to the track, and I was buying a Rockstar energy drink for before. I was eating some power bars or maybe some nuts or something during. And then as soon as I was drinking Gatorade, and then I had to have a pre-mixed muscle milk protein shake for when I was done. Those are the worst things you could possibly be putting in your body when you're training and trying to get stronger. But it was better than going and eating McDonald's or something. So I knew there was a niche for this, and I quickly learned as much as I could. And I started working with formulators, and I started getting to know the stuff. And, luckily for me, sales and marketing comes naturally. Science and chemistry is something that I'm passionate about, but then formulation is something that's just really exciting. So we started with these great supplements that were proven, used by top triathletes all around the world. But I was able to take those to our formulators and say, how can we make this better? What can we do? And, we removed the artificial colors, removed the artificial flavors. We used higher quality proteins, and we changed certain formulas, and now they're really good. So yeah, it was the supplements were not something that either of us knew we didn't have a background in it, but we made it work.
That's awesome. So back, 12 years ago when you were on, let's call you an amateur motocross guy, and Ryan, your partner, he is a professional motocross guy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you decided to focus your marketing efforts back then on motocross. Is that right?
We knew, yeah, we 100%, we knew that motocross was like a red carpet for us, because not only was Ryan Hughes like the tip of the spear when it came to knowledge and background and understanding of health and wellness for the motocross racer, he was still moonlighting and coming out and doing cameos at huge races. Like, I'll never forget, we went up to Sacramento for the first round of the outdoor nationals, which is like, the beginning of the NFL football season. Preseason's over. It's like that first game of the season, of the 16 games. And Ryan Hughes came out of retirement, and the local magazine, which had just started a website, of course, that was 2009, 2010 when that all started. And they mic'd up his mechanic and him, and they followed him around all day. And he ended up setting a time that was like second fastest to the guy that was winning the championship series. So we were getting all this publicity still. So motocross was a natural first step, but then because motocross bleeds into mountain biking and BMX and other sports, we immediately had recognition in those other sports. And so that's how we handled that.
Yeah, because one of the things that I really appreciate with looking at RynoPower is how you guys made a product which can work for many different types of professional athletes or high-level competitive athletes, but you focused early on the two-wheeled sports. And I always say, there's riches and niches, and by focusing, you can really talk to that audience more naturally, more organically, and do much better. I'd rather have 20% market share of a really small industry than a 0% market share of a much larger, broader industry. And I think you guys are the perfect example of that.
You are absolutely right. Like I look at this trajectory that we have from 2010 till now, and I go, people say, oh, what if you partnered with someone else? Or what if you did something, and I said, if I came out with Ryan McCarthy supplements and no one knew who I was, they wouldn't have worked. And if Ryan Hughes tried to do it on his own without a business person, it wouldn't have worked. But the two people together who are passionate about something, and then having a captive audience that knows who you are, and there's that name recognition, and then me knowing that industry and knowing what it's like to be an amateur in that industry, the guy who actually pays for everything, when you're a pro at any sport, you don't pay for anything. So it's a lot different when you want, like, let's say a basketball player wants the nicest Air Jordans, or, a triathlete that's on TV and winning all the time. He wants anything, they give it to him. But when you're an amateur athlete, you have to pay for stuff. So how do you get in the mind of that person, and what does he look for in the magazines and the ads and the digital? And so we're able to figure that out. And the coolest thing, Scott, was we were at a time, and it's funny, like this world that we're in now with social media, 2022, people forget in 2010, Instagram wasn't even out yet. There certainly was no TikTok. Twitter may have existed, I don't even know, but Facebook was hot. And so back then, you could give an athlete a couple things of protein and say, hey, do you mind if I take a picture? And he would let you take a picture of him with the protein, and he would post on his Facebook, and you could post on your Facebook, and no one was trying to get money or contracts. It was just like, cool. Instagram came out. We immediately jumped on that. And same thing for the first few years until about 2016, we were able to have these professional athletes just get $100 or $200 worth of free stuff and hold it up on their Instagrams and reach all of their followers. And it was a really unplanned set of marketing that we were able to do.
Yeah, I don't think the term influencer existed in 2010. And everybody understands what an influencer is. But if you said that word in 2010, no one would understand what you were talking about.
They would have thought you were crazy if you were going to say that people followed other people who have never accomplished anything substantial in their life, and they bought things because that person told you to buy them. It's an interesting world that we're in.
It is definitely an interesting world that we're in. So today in 2022, how big has RynoPower grown to? How big is your company at now?
So we are a 7-figure company, and we're growing every year.
Yep.
We have a warehouse in the United States in San Diego, which was our original one. We have a warehouse in Canada that services direct to consumer from our Shopify website there. We have a Shopify website in the UK, which services UK, and that used to be serviced by our third warehouse, which is in the in European Union in Lommel, Belgium. But after Brexit, we had to put one in the UK also because that became a disaster. And then we have one in Australia. And so those are areas that we picked the top 5 economies in the world. And we said, let's make sure we have direct to consumer, customs cleared, duties paid product available to the end user in 1 to 3 days. And we coupled that with digital marketing. And that's how RynoPower has gotten bigger, is we've taken this niche and now we're making sure we're servicing our niche everywhere in the world that really, has the ability to get stuff shipped directly to your doorstep in 1 to 4 days and so on and so forth. So RynoPower's come a long way. I mean, I remember my first office was at my house in my bedroom at my condo at the time. And I had a fulfillment center from the very first day. I knew I didn't want to be the entrepreneur that was down in his garage, like taping up boxes and trying to rush to the post office there. That was not going to be a good use of my time. So I had this home office and I would call my business partner and say, dude, we sold 2 proteins today. It was a good day, That was it was a fun time. We both, he was successful and had money in the bank and I had money in the bank, and we were able to kind of just love talking and brainstorming, getting this stuff going. And there wasn't this huge sense of urgency for it to be successful at the moment. And I think that helped us because we weren't pushing it on anyone. We weren't forcing it on anyone. We were just sharing really good quality stuff with people who needed it, and they were buying it in droves,
Yep. So let's go back to the early days. It's a natural choice for you and Ryan Hughes, who's, a professional motocross athlete, well known in the space, to focus on motocross. Let's talk about how you focus on motocross.
And we've tried a lot of different things. We ran advertisements in magazines. We've done digital ads on websites that are endemic. We've done digital marketing on Facebook and Instagram and Google. And what we found with supplements, the very best way to market to motocross is to meet the people at the track as often as you can. And that doesn't just mean Southern California. You want to put product in people's hands. And we found that the absolute best customers are the ones that are lining up to race. So just non-motocross people are going to be familiar with the little league or high school sports or, traveling team sports. Motocross is no different. You've got families that are going to the track every weekend, and those families are investing heavily in their kid's sport and trying to help him or her succeed. And so we try to send what we call swag bags to as many different race promoters nationwide as we can. And that way, all the kids who finish top 3, they get a little bag saying, they open it up and there's samples in there. Whenever possible, we go to these events, we set up booths up there and we meet the person, talk to them, but we learned quickly to get their information. And now we bring that information home and we put it into our digital ecosystem, which is the site that you rebuilt for us. And now it's working so well, like a Ferrari. And we installed Klaviyo and we installed a number of different affiliate programs, loyalty programs. And we've created an atmosphere where, once you get introduced to us, you're going to see our ads on your digital. You're going to see it on your search engines. You're going to get our email blast from us. If you put something in your cart, you're going to get an abandoned cart. You're even going to get an abandoned browse email. And so we've built a system now where we can meet you at the motocross track or the BMX track or the mountain bike park or wherever. We can get your information, or we can get your information other ways, other marketing creative ways, bring you into our system, and ideally, give you a good reason to buy RynoPower.
Yep. So you're doing today, and in the early days, you're doing lots of event marketing at motocross and other sporting events. How many events do you think you actually sponsor, and how many do you actually visit in a given year?
2017, 2018, and 2019, we were probably going to 20 to 25 events per year, 1 every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then we probably sponsored another 100 events per year on top of that. So, 125 events a year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but each one of those events, you pass out 100 or 200 of your swag bags. Those people get it. And we have found that we can get about a 35% conversion rate if we do it right. If we get your information, you take the samples, you try them. Obviously, you have to have a good product, and we have the best product. But, if you have something that tastes good, works well, and is really good for you, and you feel a difference. But then you get that reminder email and you get that little call to action, and you get even a phone call once in a while if the marketing team has the time. People checking in on you, offering to do a consultation. Like if you give that whole full circle experience, then the customer can really be excited.
Yeah. So I think 25 events that you're physically going to every year, being someone who's been on a plane once in the past 6 years, I think unbelievably a lot of road tripping. And then, the 125, I think those are not small numbers at all. Shop, that's not big for Red Bull, but that's big for any Shopify level business, right?
Yeah. I think, it takes a dedicated team, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of planning, and people do forget it is I look at the Amex bill from the team after some of these things, and by the time you feed everyone and put gas in the car, it's not an inexpensive thing, but it seems to be something that works.
Everybody knows the mantra on the web where, nobody makes a purchase until they get 6 to 12 touch points, whatever that number is. And you guys are, that's not a web only metric. The same thing is true offline. So you've just decided to, as your dominant marketing tool, do offline marketing through events where everybody's coming together to these focal points, like that Sacramento event you talked about. Everybody's driving to Sacramento. You're all getting together, and you guys have the tent up. You got the branding everywhere. You're in the swag bags. And every time one of your athletes goes to another event, they're going to see that Ryno branding again and again and again. And you're keeping yourself top of mind.
Also try to make sure that we see them at the event, and of course in the live personal setting, follow them around in the digital ecosystem. But the third caveat is we try to make sure that we get the influencers, the word that no one loves, but in our case, it's these professional athletes that use Ryno Power, who tag about it or post about it like a few times a year. You can't ask a kid that makes $3 million a year to post Ryno Power like you used to be able to in 2012 and 13. But you can get 2 or 3 posts a year out of them. And then if you make sure all your guys are doing it, now it's like your hero uses the stuff. You met the guys at the track, that you tried the product, it's good, and you're getting emails and everything. It's the new world of those 6 touches,
Yeah, that third bucket you just mentioned, I love, is the whole sponsored athlete, where you've got partnerships with athletes who are using your product, supporting the brand, doing their messaging, because now every athlete is an influencer. A professional athlete is an influencer themselves. And it's just that reverberation. Basically, I want to ask you to guess 2 numbers, because your industry is so small. I bet you don't know them. But what percentage of professional motocross athletes do you think use Ryno Power? And what percentage of motocross athletes have heard of or know of Ryno Power?
Ooh. That is a good question. I would say the professional motocrossers, AMA Pro Card holders is the American Motorcycle Association. If you're a true pro, you have an American Motorcycle Association card. And then at the biggest races of the year, that's the top 40 guys race, but there might be 120 guys that try to qualify for that. Out of the 3,000 to 4,000 licensed professional motocrossers in the country, I'd say 30 to 50% probably use Ryno Power, because at the very, very top level, you've got all these trainers who are constantly like, oh, you got to use this, or you got to use that, or, oh, I use this. It takes guys that we've cultivated from when they're kids all the way through the ranks the last 11 years. And now some hotshot wannabe trainer is telling them they got to use this product because the NFL guy that they used to work with uses it, or the camel jockey that they used to work with uses it, or something, and so we let those guys go. But at the bottom half of those pro card holders, which are still the fastest guys at the local track any given day all across the country, I'd say probably, 75% of the bottom 50 use it, and then about 25% of the top 50% of professional athletes use it. Now, of all regular amateur motocross racers in the country, I'd say we're penetrating about 20% of them have used it. 15% of them use it on a regular basis, maybe 35%, but we have a 70% returning customer rate. So 7 out of 10 people that buy on our website have bought before. So we're kind of proving that people like our stuff. They come back, they buy it again, that, hopefully we're doing a good job with our customer service, very fast shipping, quality product at a good, affordable price. We do all those things and we treat you really well. And then, we get you back, but still there's this mindset in amateur motocross and in all sports. Oh, well, I don't know. Is that stuff really going to be worth it? Do I need it? But you'll still stop at the gas station and get a Gatorade and a power bar and a bag of Doritos and, whatever to drink when you're done. And they don't realize how quickly that adds up to. You're probably saving money when you just buy our product and use it every day.
Yep. So 20 to 50% using the product number, that's unbelievably high, right?
Yeah.
Even Amazon doesn't have that level of penetration as dominant as it is. Walmart probably does, but those are just unbelievably high numbers. And then, the brand recognition of everybody seeing and knowing the brand, those are really good. But that's why, that's why you can only focus on one or two niches because it's so much energy. But if you put that energy in, the returns are even greater than if you spread that same energy across multiple niches. Right?
100%. And therein, you just brought up the most perfect point. This is why in 2015 we started going to some CrossFit stuff, and we were doing some football tournaments and some soccer tournaments, and we learned quickly, you have to be there all the time for these people. You can't just be there one and done. And if you're there one time and they buy your product one time, if they don't see you again and again and again, you're not going to keep that customer. So we learned, I think it was 2017 when I said no more of these off sports or off genre sports. Let's stick to two-wheel sports. Let's own this market and let's get really good at what we're doing. And then when we have enough capital from our profits, or we are sexy enough to attract a private equity firm or a venture capital firm or something like that, then part of our 2.0 business plan can be expanding into more sports when we can afford it. And we know how to do it. We know how to take any sport that's like a pyramid where you have some very top guys and then lots of amateurs all across the country that are doing the sport. Any sport like that, which is triathlons, CrossFit's another example, especially soccer, little league, football, all that stuff. But, we can branch off with a sophisticated plan to do that when the capital is there. But when you're a small company and you're trying to get going and you're trying to be something for everybody, you're never, ever going to succeed, in my opinion.
Yeah. If you try to satisfy everybody, you're going to satisfy no one, right?
It's true.
And that's why the focus on niches, right? The focus for you guys on motocross, and having, humans are fickle. We all forget and we all have to be reminded all the time, right? Anybody that owns their own house, you probably get at least a mailing a week, if not one every day from real estate agents.
Yep.
And, you may own your house for 10, 20, 30 years, and all the real estate agents trying to do is keep themselves top of mind. So they send you a mailing every single month. Yep. So that one day you decide to sell your house, they're hoping their mailing showed up in your mailbox that day.
That day, yep. And that name somehow registers with you as I'm the real estate agent in your neighborhood. I'm the guy or the gal to call. Yep.
So you guys, not only do you have to invest in that marketing to build the awareness, you have to keep investing to keep them re-awared.
Arguably, the most frustrating thing is you start to succeed and then 2, 3, 4 competitors pop up because other people go, oh, wow. Look at this market. Look how well RynoPower is doing. Let's go try to sell to these guys too.
Yep.
And we've seen a lot of those guys come and go.
Back in 2010, when we first started out, how many people were focused on motocross with nutritional supplements?
Oh, 0. We were the only one. And then now I'd say there's 3 to 4 companies whose number one market is motocross right now.
Yep.
But we're kicking all of their asses on a daily basis, and it's also the funnest part of our job.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And with the exception of Google, there's no company that I know of that has complete dominance of their market, right?
Yeah.
Even if you think Apple and iPhone, I think iPhones get 30, 40% market share, and then all the different versions of Android get the rest of them. It's only Google with 98% market share that literally owns a market. Everybody else is happy with 20, 25%. if they're the number one, and then, 4 or 5 players work in every market,
Yep. With a market like ours, and I'm sure there's hundreds of markets like this, where you're trying to teach people the importance of nutrition on groups that may not think of it every day. If you're a long distance runner, of course you think that you need nutrition and supplements. If you're a bodybuilder, of course you need nutrition and supplements. But the last 20 years, people have started to see that, like, you can drink protein shakes to live a healthier lifestyle, and having a good protein intake is good for your metabolism and your diet and your hair and your skin and your nails and your immune system. All of these different things benefit from having the right nutrition at the right times. And so oftentimes I think that my competitors, at least they're out there getting that message out to people, and then let it boil down to who has the best product. And, I don't think anyone spends as much time as we do on the quality of building a quality product and that tastes good and works well the way RynoPower does.
Yeah, you guys are definitely focused on the quality of your product. And I think you're also focused on the quality of your service. Like, you talk about fast shipping a lot, and, your site shows, talks about it also, because customers, are, once again, really fickle. So you have to have that fast shipping, but you guys are also very focused on all natural, no artificial, no GMO, and you promote that and advertise that. So that quality product, the quality service is there. So it all supports, and that, because you have a quality service and a quality product, you can spend the money to invest in marketing and acquiring new users and all those kind of things. A total aside, as I think I told you early on, when we were doing your site redesign project, I've never been as afraid to launch as I was with yours, because your conversion rate was ridiculous. I didn't believe it when I first saw it. Right? Yeah. And if I remember correctly, your conversion rate was like 8%.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it would hit 8. It was like 6.7 to 7.5 and 8 once in a while. But yeah, it was nice to hear you say that, because I had, always just judged us against the 6 months prior.
Yep. Well, and the interesting thing, like, I always tell a Shopify store, if you're doing 2%, you're doing good. If you're doing 3%, you're doing great. And then I see you guys, and I've had, clients had higher than that, but you guys are consistently 6 to 8. It's easy once you look at your business, it's easy to see why, right? Because you're very focused. You're not marketing to everybody. You're very focused on, we're going after the two-wheeled sports enthusiast, whether it's mountain bike or motocross and BMX and those kind of things. And you're a replenishable product. So people are coming back, and as you said before, 7 out of 10 of your customers are repeat customers. So they're coming back. You don't have to sell them the 15th time they're placing an order. They just want to place another order, and your job is just not get in their way. So that really high conversion rate is a function of being very focused in your marketing and having a replenishable or consumable product.
Exactly. But, the nice thing about working with you on the project was the number of different companies that you'd worked with, and you point something out to us that I've been taking to the marketing team on a daily basis, is maybe because the conversion rate is so high, are we showing ourselves to enough people? And I never thought about it that way. I thought, oh man, look, we're doing well. This is growing. But are we showing ourselves to enough people? Because maybe we should be a slightly broader audience, and then let the conversion rate be 4 or 5, 7 or 8. Maybe you're just not marketing to a broad enough audience.
Yeah, that is absolutely possible, right? But it just, you got to go back to that, investing from scratch with a new industry. So let's talk a little bit more about your focus on motocross, because if anybody goes and checks out RynoPower, the website, it's RynoPower.com. And the first thing you're going to see when you go to that website is you're going to feel like you're at the track, right? This isn't some website where all the photos are just of the product with a white background. This site lives and breathes athletes performing unbelievably. Like the pop-up we have for, hey, join our email list, is a guy on a motorcycle in the air where you don't see the ground. He's just flying through the air sideways. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And that's everywhere throughout the site. And these aren't stock photos. These are photos that you guys go and get of your sponsored athletes. So you're not just, generically pulling these things. These are your athletes using your products. Your brand is on their clothing and on their gear, half the time. Explain to me how you build a relationship with your athletes to be able to do that, where they're willing to do photo shoots with you. How much work does that take? How much energy? Because I think it makes your site really pop.
It's hard. It's really difficult. Some of these professional athletes have extremely tight schedules. They're traveling all over the country. They have sponsors paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars more than we give them. And, interesting tidbit is we don't pay hardly any of our guys because we know we have the best product. And if they want to take something else and get paid by that company, they can. But if they want to get free product from us, we're willing to do it if they're a top athlete in their sport, So what we try to do is, I think the reason these guys like us is we are real and they know we make the best thing. It's not smoke and mirrors. And then we've maintained relationships for a long time. Like some of our guys will win a championship one year and the next year they're 20th place. And the next year they're 15th place. And we'll still take care of them because we know that they're just, they switch bike manufacturers or they're getting used to something or they, had something change in their personal life, that affected them. And then when they come back and win the championship again, it's that much sweeter. And, scheduling these guys is hard, but we just try to be completely neutral for them. And, whenever they're free, we send our photographer there or send our video guy there and we work around their schedule. And a lot of times they can be in town doing something and we'll just be there for their workout or we'll be there for their ride and we'll shoot it then. And we say, hey, Aaron, can you come over here for a little bit? We're going to take some pictures and do some stuff. And, he gives us 10 minutes of his time. So we try to be really easy, not intrusive. We're not trying to, stay in the guest room at their house and spend 5 days with them, We just try to be there, like ready to go and take care of them quickly and efficiently and not interrupt the cadence of their day.
Well, the two things I hear there that are interesting. One is it's a personal, relationship. I'm thinking back to Jerry Maguire, right? Where, it's Tom Cruise. Exactly. Tom Cruise with one client and how that client feels really special where all the other sports agents have 1,000 clients. Because you guys are focused on one industry, it's a smaller set of people you get to know so you can actually have a deeper relationship with them, right?
Yep. It helps a lot. And also, the pedigree that we have of my business partner and what he accomplished, but also the riders that we've had. I mean, we've had guys come up through the ranks, be successful, become millionaires, and retire since we started our company. So we've been around long enough that they know us and trust us.
Yeah, your pool of past athletes is an impressive portfolio on which you can sell. And the other thing that I heard you say that's really interesting is you meet them where they are, right?
Yeah.
They don't come to you, you go to them, and you make it as easy as possible for them to say yes, and as hard as possible for them to say no.
Exactly.
Now, for the photography in the video, is that an in-house skill?
Scott, it's such a good question. Right now, it's in-house. The video stuff is still subbed out. I have found, and I hope other entrepreneurs that listen to this or whatever hear me on this one. If I started again 10 years ago, I would do two things. Number one, I would teach myself graphic design right off the bat. Unfortunately for Scott, I would teach myself web design. Although finding someone like Scott, I've been through 500 awful people, and God, we're never leaving. As long as you'll keep us as a client, I'm happy. But the other thing I would do, teach myself graphic design. I'd like to learn a little bit more about web. And then I would also teach myself photography and videography, because it has been so difficult to find good photographers or good videographers. And then half the time when you find someone, they go shoot and then they get busy with someone else and someone else and someone else. It's fun to shoot stuff. It's not fun to edit it. So then you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And then you get something that's half-assed and they go, oh, well, this guy's paying me more money, so I had to finish his stuff first. I had to rush yours. You go, well, then why did you take my money in the first place? So when we started to hire people in-house, we have an in-house graphic designer like the last 6 years now, different ones, but the latest is a great guy. His name is Christian. He knows how to do digital marketing as well as graphic design, and he handles our email blast. So he's been really good. And then our brand manager happens to have formerly done photography. So that's helpful. And we bought a nice camera. I think it's something that every entrepreneur should invest in. We also bought studio equipment so we can shoot our own stuff, edit our own stuff, get it on the site. When an athlete comes here, we can do a photo shoot. When we launch a new t-shirt, we can go in the parking lot and we take a dirt bike or a mountain bike and we put it in the back of a truck, or we lean it against the side of a fence and have the kid pose looking at his phone or whatever. And we're able to do photo shoots right outside our door in 2 to 3 hours, or drive up to the local gym where the guys are, or, when they're in LA or when they're in Orange County or when they're in the Inland Empire or something, or in San Diego County, we can shoot them when they're here. And I think that's been really helpful, is having those skills in-house. Subcontracting has been the bane of my life as an entrepreneur. It's awful, like relying on people who aren't professional. And, everyone knows some guy who's a graphic designer, or some guy who claims he can build a site, or some guy who might be able to do the videos, and it's like you spend your whole time chasing those people around and chasing them around. And if you can just have some good in-house people, or find some good people who you trust to handle your website or handle your stuff, it's worth the extra money, because the friend of a friend, you're only going to get half-ass stuff that doesn't work, and you're going to spend your whole time fixing it. And with photography and videography, we have almost all of it in-house now.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, RynoPower is a brand, right? It's not just a store, it's a brand. And most Shopify stores are trying to be brands. And if you're going to be a brand, content's an important part of that strategy, right? If you're just going to sell Alibaba, or, resell stuff, you don't need a brand, and you're just going to do, Google ads or Facebook ads. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want a long, sustainable business that's based on a brand, content's going to be an important part of that. And I think that anything that's important to your business should be an in-house skill set.
Yeah.
And then content, especially with the changes that are happening with Facebook advertising, because the iOS updates and the upcoming cookies going away and all that kind of stuff, that advertising is going to get harder, where it's been really sophisticated, and it's going to get less sophisticated or less capable in the future, possibly. And we're going to be better as e-commerce brands in building a brand and doing that customer retention. And a lot of that is content-based marketing, which is what you guys are doing. So, bring that skill in-house is super valuable.
And teach yourself how to do it. I mean, like this day and age, with such a good camera and such amazing editing software, you don't have to be Ansel Adams to take a picture of a tree. You can take a picture of a tree with a, Nikon 5000 camera, or whatever they are called these days. And you do the auto setting, it tells you the best setting, and you bring it into Lightroom on your Apple, or into whatever, Photoshop or whatever you're using. And you just click around, and the thing just gets sharper and better and more beautiful. Like, if you're not a total monkey, you should be able to shoot your stuff, and then at least the graphic designer can fix it up from that point,
I think you bring up an important point that maybe people that don't do this, taking their own photography and their own video yet, don't realize, is how much of the skill is not through the glass of the lens or the device, right? How much of the skill is actually the software, and how good are you with the software? Because nothing looks great raw, and it's going through the software and editing, especially a video where, anybody who's watched a YouTube video that's really popular these days, nobody just does a video anymore. It's a video with, text popping up and images floating across the screen and all this other stuff to keep you engaged. That's super valuable, but that's all in software, right?
And you're right. They don't realize how easy it is. I was in Tennessee recently, and I was doing this motocross event that I go to every year with my team. And it's like all the fastest kids from the whole world, and they all descend on Tennessee, and they race for like 6 days straight. It's called the Loretta Lynn's Amateur National. But anyway, we had these girls working for us, and one of them had done like these little reels, these Instagram reels for a grocery store or something. And they give her some garlic or some organic tomatoes, and she shows you how to make something quick. And she explained the process to me, and I was just like captivated by it. It was so simple, but so thought out at the same time.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be that big of a deal, but she'd shoot the tomatoes, then she'd shoot the mozzarella, then she'd shoot the garlic, then she'd pour the mozzarella or the olive oil on the mozzarella, and she's shooting all these different things. And you lay them out and you just drag them around.
Yep.
And then you find music. And if you're in TikTok, TikTok will actually edit the little clips to the beat of the music. It'll, and it's insane, the AI that they must be using for that. But the point is, I thought these reels were like being done in some kind of video editing software. I didn't realize you're literally just shooting 20 things through the day, and then you're moving these things around, laying it to a track, and you're extending the clip or shortening the clip so it hits some beat. And it's really very simple. So I was totally captivated by this 21-year-old girl who's teaching me how to use the reels for the first time the right way. And I had been like, do we need to hire someone? Do we need to do this? Like, where do we find someone to do this stuff for us? And, so that was really a learning experience there. And yeah, we've been surprised, but it's also a fine line. I actually will, now that we're saying it out loud here, Scott, there is stuff you shouldn't do yourself, like, because you go to some sites, and it was you that told us, you gave us a lot of great advice throughout the process of working with you, which I really appreciated. And one of the things was, people notice your site runs better. That's great. It's faster, blah, blah, blah. But they notice your new banners and your new photos. So make sure that stuff pops, And so there's certain things where you really should send that off to a graphic artist. If it's your homepage and it's, your main products and stuff, if you're not getting that high quality, crisp stuff, you need to sub it off to somebody else.
Yeah. Your homepage banner, did Christian make that one?
Yeah, Christian kicked ass on that.
Anybody listening, you got to go to RynoPower.com and just look at the homepage banner, because it is a thing. The second I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, that's way better than anything I could do. It's got like 10 different sports action images overlaid, and some are black and white and some aren't. The whole product lineup it's just beautiful. There's shadow, there's depth. I don't know how he does it, but
it's not crowded. It's so good, Scott, that I've had him carry it now into like different things that we print, different banners that we make. Like, this has become like the RynoPower 2.0 look.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. And just like you say, right, when people look at a website like, oh, I love that design, the answer is actually usually, no, you don't. You love that banner ad or that banner, right? Everybody looks at your site like, oh, I love the design. They're not looking at all the stuff that I did and the text I defined and how we navigate around. They're looking at Christian's banner and going, that is really cool.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you got to have both, but most people notice the visual aspects the most, right?
Right.
So, spending a little time and money, having that high quality imagery does make a difference.
Yep. And then maybe us as the entrepreneur could have shot those photos ourselves, but give it to the graphic designer to make the final banner,
Yep.
Like, look, I was rubbing pennies together. I put a bunch of my own money to get the company started, and there was a million times that I couldn't afford the people that we needed, but I had to ask a favor or do this or try to do stuff myself. And, so we learned a lot to get to where we're at. And luckily, I had a good business knowledge and I wasn't in a hurry. These people who start businesses while they're working 9 to 5 and, they don't have any time to go to events on the weekends. They don't really have time to put in this. It's really tough to do that. I was able to have a comfortable little foundation to build off of and, get this company going. But it's definitely, I learned how to rub pennies together in a lot of situations.
Well, that's the whole, one of the definitions of entrepreneur, I would think, is, how to make something out of nothing. Because that's what we all have to do with our small businesses is I got to solve it. Like when I started my podcast, like, how do you do a podcast? I couldn't hire a consultant to go tell me how to do that. And I just figured it out on my own and tried different software, tried different microphones. And as I got better, I bought better equipment and all that kind of stuff. And you just grow. And, I do my podcast myself because, it is part of my content-based strategy. I'm probably at the point now where I could outsource some of it. And I probably should have done that a while ago. You got to learn to let go of things. But I also think that knowing how it's done, if it's going to be an important part of your marketing and having that hands-on capability and knowledge. Like I remember one of the conversations you and I had about your imagery, and you were using graphical terms that I had no idea what you were talking about, right? going back and forth about, oh, it's got to be this, offset black shade blue or what kind of thing. And like you guys knew that level of detail, where you are running a 7-figure nutritional supplement business, but you understand the intricacies of graphics and how photos get processed, because that's an important aspect of your brand.
Yeah. I mean, the best CEO or owner of a company, in my opinion, is the guy that can do every job in the place, for the most part, but also knows what he's not good at. But I can go down and ship orders if I need to. I can, do a consultation if I need to. I can go to the event and hustle the support applications from the athletes, and I can mix up samples, and I can formulate product, and I even can make the product, but those were all things that I had to learn over the years, and I think they've made me a better owner and a better business person. And, with the graphic design, oh man, until I was blue in the face trying to explain what we're trying to accomplish when we had off-site graphic designers was so difficult. When you're taking a label and you're like, no, it needs to be a little bit more red, or the stroke needs to be thinner, or the fade needs to be on, or the opacity needs to change. And there were times where I spent so many hours over someone's shoulder that I was like, no, click right there, pull this over there, and you start to learn the things. But it helps a lot when you understand how the stuff gets made. And I think it starts to save you a lot of time and money.
Absolutely agree with you. So as we talk about our motocross focus, or your motocross focus, how do you decide, how many events you're going to go to, how many athletes you're going to sponsor? How do you decide how much you're going to invest? And what levers do you have that you pull there?
It's really tough. I try to do like a rough budget, at the end of one year heading into the next year, and I say, okay, I look at it and I say, we got to have a few guaranteed top guys, so I have to lock in my guaranteed top guys. But then I know after that, I have to have some other good guys. So I don't really mind if someone else is trying to poach them or take them, because I know I have my locked in guys. So, I'm going to try to match the previous year's budget on what athletes I'm sponsoring and who I have. Usually you lose people, they come back. Sometimes I slap their hand and I won't take them back. They can pay for the product if they want it, because if you went and supported one of my competitors, and then that company went out of business, then, they didn't pay you more than me, or they didn't pay you at all, and neither did I, but you went over there anyway because of what, they told you they were going to take more pictures of you or polish your fender for you or something, these are things where, these natural progression happens. But what I try to do is I try to know who my top guys are and make sure I have them locked into place. And then as far as going to events, I try to make sure that when I feel like we're losing market share in something, or we have an opportunity to gain more market share, we'll hit those things. And a lot of it depends on who my full-time staff is. Like when we have 9 to 12 people and there's a couple kids that are single, they don't have kids at home, or no wife at home or husband at home, and they don't mind being on the road all the time. We might hit 35 events that year, but right now, for instance, the staff, everyone's married and has kids and stuff. And there's only 2 people that aren't that way. So it's a lot to put on their shoulders. And it's been difficult in the last 3 years with COVID and all that, but especially this weird post-COVID economy that we're in. People don't want to go make $200 or $300 working part-time at an event for you. So we've found it has to be full-time employees. So we're actually dealing with that, looking at 2023, going, we're going to hire 2 or 3 more in-house people, look for people without a lot of family strings attached, young up-and-coming kids with good personalities that we can send to events. Going to events is trying to find the events that you don't have to pay $2,000 or $3,000 to be at, although we'll do a few of those every year because they're the biggest ones. But not getting sucked into the $500. If you're paying $500 for a booth, the event sucks. The promoter's just screwing you over. I should be able to go somewhere for free and set up my booth because I'm going to pass out stuff and enhance your event, whether it's a triathlon or a CrossFit event or a motocross race or a BMX race. So we try to identify those, and then we want to make sure we don't hit the same place every week. Like we hit Phoenix one weekend, Central California the next weekend, Los Angeles County, go out to Nevada, Las Vegas area, hit Orange County, Los Angeles, then San Diego, because no hotels are needed down here, and then we try to do kind of the loops again. So I wish it was more of a science, and I wish I could tell you I had a better plan, but it's like, what's available, what events are popular right now, and then where can we go where it doesn't cost us an arm and a leg, but we're still meeting new customers, and so that's how we put our event plan together. And that determines a lot. Now, one of the things I've been doing lately is preparing a lot of budgets for a private equity firm that we're talking to. And it's funny, you start talking to one and then two others pop up, and they want to talk to you too. But one of the things that we feel is a good opportunity for us is to do more events nationwide, so that we would hire 3 to 4 full-time employees nationwide, one guy in like a Great Lakes area, one in the Northeast, one in the Northwest, and then one in the Southeast, and then one in greater Texas area. And they would hit 3 to 5 events per week, those small events like I just described. And they would pass out the samples and do the swag bags and do all the stuff. All of the customer information would come into us. And so that's something that we're working on right now.
So you might actually have regional event reps full-time across the country.
Exactly. Yep. Coming into the digital ecosystem that you helped us build to get them in the door. And hopefully once we have their email, they're on our email list, if Apple doesn't completely shutter the advertising industry, we should be able to be hitting them with ads for the next 6 months from the time they enter our ecosystem. And I mean, 6 years for that matter, but we're going to hit them hard for the 3 months after they kind of join our email list with emails and digital ads and all that. So hopefully we can do it right.
Yep. Now, you kind of alluded to it a minute ago. I heard you say you basically have a gut feel for, are you spending enough? Are you not spending enough? Is there any sort of hard metrics where you look at some numbers to judge the success of all these efforts?
Yeah. So all of the, without giving away too much of our trade secrets, all of the people that we meet in the events come on to a spreadsheet, and we will cross-check that spreadsheet with purchases and try to get conversion rates. And so if our conversion rate's under 30%, then I know a few things are wrong. Number one, maybe we're not making a good first impression on them at the event. Number two is we're talking to the wrong people. Or number three, which is usually the culprit, is the person in the office doing the relationship building isn't doing their job. They're shooting out a mass email saying, "Dear person," not "Dear, Scott, Austin, thanks for meeting us at the, San Diego triathlon last weekend. It was great seeing you. You mentioned that you like chocolate protein and you buy XYZ company's chocolate protein. I wanted to tell you that we make a chocolate protein that's better. It has more grams of protein and uses organic ingredients, blah, 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 blah." I can see those metrics when they're not working. And I also know that if we're not getting those, the contacts, if someone goes to an event and only 3 or 4 people sign up for the email, then I know there's a problem. I know that person's not being personal enough. They're probably sitting at the booth on their cell phone, playing with Instagram. And that's what we've learned over the years, is what a successful event is. And furthermore, if you know that you have your best guy and he's going to some kind of event and only getting 3 or 4 emails, then chances are we shouldn't be going to those events anymore. And we had that happen in Colorado. We sponsored a big mountain bike enduro race. And what we learned was this promoter had everyone like park in this area. Then there was a sign up over here. And then the vendor area was like separate from both those areas. So these guys signed up, went back, got their bikes, lined up and raced. And at no point in that circle were they ever like at the vendor row. So you didn't have anyone coming down to your area. So, you got to make sure you get the right events.
Yep. So what I heard is you actually are measuring the event performance by how many email addresses are collected.
Yep.
And you actually track those email addresses conversion rate on your website.
Yep.
Amazing amount of work.
Yeah, it's and right now it's a little bit manual, but we're trying to integrate some software that's going to help us with that. So we can say, what is the average conversion rate for a BMX race versus a mountain bike race versus a motocross race. And then what's, we could start bonusing our event people and our in-house rider support manager, athlete support manager, we call them, on the conversion rate. We could say if you hit a 40% conversion rate, for 3 months in a row, you get $1,000 bonus or something. Like we could we could get those metrics. So we're trying to find some kind of software that could do the work for us. But right now we're doing it manual.
Yeah. And, at companies the size of yours, right, a lot of it's going to be manual, as you've heard me say before. It's, companies like Facebook and Google and Microsoft that automate that stuff, but they also have a team of 10 developers for 2 years costing, $3 million to build that automation. So
exactly. That's like, it sure is nice when you have that.
Yeah. Small companies got to do things by hand because it's too expensive to automate, even though it would be nice if you could on a lot of these things. Automate what you can and just do the manual stuff when it's time to do manual stuff. You just got to suck it up, small company. Yeah, and I'm surprised and impressed that you have more direct metrics on this event return on investment than I thought you guys did. That's really cool.
It's been a work in progress, but yeah, we have them now, and I'm kind of a stickler on it because, again, it must be nice to start a business with $10 million that maybe you borrowed from your parents or that some angel investor gave you. But the truth is, that's so rare. And I don't know very many entrepreneurs that get that. You hear about it on TV, and any millennial that you talk to, no offense to any millennials listening to this podcast, but like, they're going to tell you like, oh, I've got this idea and I'm just going to get an investor and then I'm just going to pay this guy and he's going to work the store for me. I'm just going to keep doing my normal job, but I'm going to invent this thing and I'm going to do it. And people are going to give me money and I'm just going to sit on the couch and get rich. Like, that doesn't actually happen. It's a blood sport, and it's brutal, and you lose sleep and you lose hours off your life and years off your life, and you get gray hairs. But when it goes well, it's so worth it, man. It's so good when it goes well.
Well, and I think I agree with you that the overnight success stories they're more mythical than real. And when they are real, they're the exception to the rule, right?
Yeah.
And it's a marathon. And you guys have been in business for 12 years. In the world of e-commerce, you guys are ancient, right? You're on the block. And I've got some clients who go back even before there was e-commerce, and they were doing things in retail and that kind of stuff. But it always builds. If you're doing things right, you're always going to get bigger. And there's ups and downs, of course, but you're doing all the right stuff every year. You just keep getting bigger and bigger, slowly and slowly. Yep. That's the way for Jade Puma, where, every year, I probably do 30%. I've never run the numbers and looked at the year over year, but I probably go the business by 30% every year for the past 5 years. And it's to the point where it's actually, I can make a living off of it. And there's a but it wasn't that.
It's a nice feeling when you get to that point, right? You go, wow, like, this is all right. Like, people like my stuff.
But, I'm also living off of investments that I made in 2014 and 15, right? But you got to make those investments and they pay off over time. Like you guys have been investing in your community for 12 years now. And you've got this brand and this reputation and this market awareness, but that would evaporate tomorrow if you stopped investing. But you had to invest. You got to keep investing to be dominant in your niche, right?
Exactly, man. And that's what we got to figure out, is how to keep doing that, and then how to mimic it in the next niche, and then, but stay true to your original. That's the big next step,
Yeah.
Well, you want to do a Garth Brooks. What was the weird album that Garth Brooks put out? It was like the alter ego. We don't want to do that.
I don't follow country, so I don't.
Oh man, he like had these like 5 Grammy winning albums and gold record, whatever, and then he released one and it was the Garth. He was like a emo goth guy, and it was a totally different genre of music, and everyone said, "What the hell?" Then he quickly came back and had another country album.
It's sort of like when Jordan went and played baseball.
Yeah. It was a little strange. It was like, okay, you're the best at this. You don't have to try to do everything, but we think there's some natural progression for Ryno Power to grow into other endurance sports. But we know that with motocross as our pedigree, there's a little bit of like cool factor, a little bit of edge to it. And so when we attract triathletes and we attract CrossFitters and we attract, all these other sports, they kind of feel like they're a little bit cooler, a little bit more badass than maybe the other people that they're competing with and playing with. And so Ryno Power is the supplement for them. And, that's this whole next level of branding and marketing that I'm trying to immerse myself in, but with, Simon Sinek and Good to Great and all these books that everyone tells you to read. But these guys are so good at kind of helping you understand who your customer is and how to expand on that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you just said that, because about the next thing I was going to say is, what I'm always amazed by with successful companies is how well they know their customer, right? And you guys know your customer really well. Now, half of that's because, Ryan Hughes, is your target audience, right? Half your ownership is your target audience, but you also, that makes it authentic because you do know your customer so well. But you got to go to the events. You got to like meet them where they're at, because you're not gonna be able to demand their time from them, and you've got to accommodate their schedules and all that kind of stuff. And that's just more, everything you've said. Just we understand our audience, and we're part of that community.
And we're trying not to have a big ego, and we're not trying not to. We are here for our athletes, and we're here for our customers, and we're a service business.
Yep. Now, as we talk about all the positives of focusing on a niche, what I want to do to end it is, are there any negatives? Like what are the downsides of being focused on a niche, if there are any?
That's a good question. And I think I'm experiencing it on some levels, when your main customer base is a niche and they're not used to buying your product, trying to think of what another example would be. Like, we're focused on this motocross audience, and they love us and they embrace us. And let's say our sales are based on that. And we're relying on a, 10 to 20% annual growth rate, and then 70% returning customer. Well, you get a competitor in, and if your field of potential customers isn't deep enough, and then the people within that field of customers, you're only going to get 20 or 30% of them to buy your stuff anyway. Another competitor comes in, and now he takes a slice of your pie. So that is difficult. You could be the best of your group, but they're still going to get bored and try other things. They're still going to try other customers. So I think those are some issues. I think also, there was a time period where this trainer was training like the very, very top motocross guys, and they kept winning championships. And this trainer would say publicly, "Oh, I don't believe in supplements." He'd like to send his people into catabolism, which is when your body eats its own fat. It creates adrenaline and testosterone because it thinks that you're starving to death, and he like had his riders doing this, in order to create like fast, I guess in his theory was faster, but so you go through like a trend changes, and you lose market share there. So there's these different things that can happen. And I think that if I had done it differently, I might have taken more money somehow in the beginning from somewhere and tried to make sure I hit motocross, mountain bike, and BMX as a trifecta. And we hit, out of the 26 events per year, it was, 8 and 8, or, something to that effect. And we did that over and over every year. And instead of 4 or 5 top motocrossers, it was 2 motocrossers, 2 BMXers, 2 mountain bikers every year that were on salary, then another 5 or 6 that, were like our top guys getting free stuff and getting some pampering. I might do that differently, but we're accomplishing that now, and it's working. But, there is some of that to be scared of, is putting all your eggs in one basket sometimes could bite you, I guess.
Yeah, the eggs in one basket. When I heard you saying it, the way I was thinking about it was, when you live in a small town, you got to watch your reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get stupid one day and do something in public. Everybody's going to remember that for the rest of your life. Where if you did the same thing in a big town, nobody notices, nobody remembers. So if you're extremely small, you got to be worried about the new kid on the block and your own reputation being tarnished by some stupid little mistake.
Yeah. 100%.
Excellent. So any advice for potential Shopify store owners or Shopify store owners on how they should focus?
The customer experience has to be really good. And I think sometimes people put so much information on their pages and so many layers of stuff. And they think like, you have to remember that you might be the world's expert with your product, and I might know every ingredient, every milligram and all this stuff. But you have to remember your customers, they're shopping on their lunch break, or they're shopping when they're back home, their brain is half turned off, they've had a beer. You need to captivate them with some good information. Them buying a $20, $30, or $100 item is not going to be the most expensive purchase they do in their lifetime, or that day, or that week, So sometimes you got to remember that it's like not to overthink it is kind of some of the advice I'd like to give people. I've tried to think of all these different ways our pages could do these things, and these videos and these pictures and these explanations, and ingredient spotlights and stuff. But what it really boils down to is like, some good testimonials, some good crisp pictures, a nice functional site where the checkout process is easy. Make sure your apps work, make sure everything's, functioning well, have the right web guy working on your stuff. That would be my advice to Shopify owners. And, I go back and forth on like how many items a good store should have. It's kind of like you go to a restaurant, there's 300 things on the menu. It's hard to pick because you're going to have 10 things that you kind of want. And so when it comes to e-commerce, you almost don't want to have too much stuff, and an easy shopping experience means you don't have 300 different things to choose from. But I think it's the most important thing is just having an easy to navigate functional website with a good product. And then, gosh, keep in touch with your customers, have good email blasts, have good follow-up, because, 7 out of 10 of my customers are returning. Without them, I couldn't imagine only making 30% of the sales that we make.
Yeah. That you have a lot of stuff there, and all of it was good stuff. One of the things that I was hearing as you were saying that was maybe you don't have to have as much information on your website because you do such a good job in building a brand and being a good community member, right?
Yeah.
It's the stores or the brands that don't have a brand yet or recognition or aren't part of their community that have to try to prove themselves more and are doing that with on-site efforts where you're doing that with a lot of your off-site efforts.
That's a good, yep. And the reputation will speak for itself. People trust it. I can release a new product and they don't have to worry about it. They know it's going to be good.
Yep. I think at least 5 times during our conversation today, even though I didn't bring it up in the question, you always said as part of the answer, great product, great service.
That's just the salesman in me.
But it's also the focus your business has. For you, your website is just a means to an end, right?
Yep.
It's the customers are important, the product's important, the service is important. The website just facilitates the connection between them all.
Exactly. It's the platform that we get to do all that.
Yep. Well, excellent. That was really helpful. Thanks for your time today, Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. That was fun, man. Let's do it again.
You've been listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast with Scott Austin. This podcast is brought to you by Jade Puma, a Shopify-focused agency located in San Diego, California. If you like what you heard, please leave a review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.